Hey everyone, welcome back to Fuckery 101. I am Lori Eberly, and today we're talking about chicken littling. If you're just joining us, fuckery is the term that I use to talk about habits that damage trust in the context of work. And if you check out our book, Fuckery, in the appendix, we've got about 180 behaviors that are pretty common for folks to fall into when we feel like our back's up against the wall, when we're under a lot of stress, when we're not being our best selves. But what you will not find in that appendix is this term, chicken littling, because this was a term coined by one of my clients, and there's nothing I like better than clients who develop the self-awareness to be able to look in the mirror and identify what their bad habits are that get in the way of creating trust and healthy communication and belonging at work. And I had a client who, after we'd worked together for a little while, said, Lori, I'm not proud to admit it, but I realized that like that storybook character, Chicken Little, I can easily get overwhelmed. And when things start falling apart, instead of projecting self-assurance and calm, being that steady Eddie, I'm over here in the chaotic land screaming, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And he's not alone. There's probably a sky is falling spectrum, right? We might call it chaos on one end and order on the other. And if this is midline, if we're gonna fall into the chicken littling category as a behavior of our fuckery, we're gonna be on this side of the middle, right? Tending towards a more chaotic response to things. And when folks are in that role of chicken little, they're experiencing overwhelm. And not only are they experiencing it, but because of the way we're hardwired, our nervous systems respond to other people's nervous system. So if I'm experiencing a lot of overwhelm because the pressure, the stress is too great at work, my system feels overloaded and overwhelmed, and then I project all of that anxiety into every nervous system around me. And in fact, our nervous systems are so perceptive in order to keep us alive that we don't even have to be working in the same space like we used to, right? Since so many of us are working remotely, our nervous systems can still pick up on overwhelm, on overload, on fear and anxiety through that Zoom call, through that phone call, because we are hardwired to survive. And if I'm frantic and if I'm freaking out, your nervous system is gonna go, oh, maybe I should too. I may add to the chicken littling other forms of fuckery like awfulizing, which means everything that's happening now looks awful. Also close cousins with catastrophizing. That, when we have a setback that's this big, all of a sudden we turn it into a setback that's monumental, epic. And I'm imagining that at some point in your life, you've worked with that person, and that for many of you watching, we might be that person, okay? So what else is part of chicken littling? In that moment when our anxiety and our nervous system are feeling overwhelmed, we are focusing on everything that's wrong. We're focusing on all the problems. And in fact, I've learned from working with a lot of really smart people over the years that part of what makes a lot of engineers and a lot of leaders so effective is that they are like hardwired to see problems. They're hardwired to notice when something doesn't fit a pattern. And so while that can be a strength, if you're working around people who seem to only focus on the problems or only see what's wrong, our nervous systems tend to not respond super well to that. So that's another sort of part of the symptom or sign that you might see, as well as a tendency to create chaos, to turn up the volume on the noise. That if I'm running around the office, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, that I am going to provoke other people to feel distracted and to look up to see why is Lori acting like that, right? So part of what we need to do, if this is our form of fuckery, is first of all recognize, yep, that's probably me, right? And then we have to talk about, well, where are we exactly, right? Like, am I way over here consistently? Like, consistently, I'm gonna say daily. I am feeling like I'm filled with chaos, running around saying that everything is wrong, the world is constantly problems, and I'm never offering solutions, right? A smaller percentage of people here. Let's say that most of folks who struggle with this are more in this domain. And I'm not asking you to move from baseline here over here. Most of us, you know, that's just not how learning and development works. What I want you to do if you're like, I might be a chicken littler, is to put yourself where you are on this end, and then just figure out how would you take one single step towards more order, more structure, and how can we flip some of these things, right? So instead of focusing on the problems, how can I instead look at solutions? Now that doesn't mean that I'm not solving at the root of the problem and that I'm not doing thorough analysis, that I'm not jumping to solutions. That's a whole different set of problems. But can I see the whole picture instead of only the parts that are broken, okay? So looking at focusing on solutions. How can I, instead of spreading chaos, recognize, I'm feeling overwhelmed, right? That's the beginning. What's happening? I'm feeling overwhelmed. We put words to that. That's again what Dan Siegel calls name it to tame it. I am overwhelmed, okay? That is Self-Awareness 101, which is what Radius believes great leaders need to be effective and to be successful. So I'm gonna recognize I'm feeling overwhelmed. I have a lot on my plate right now. I've got a deadline on Tuesday. I've got a meeting with a customer tomorrow. I got a couple of colleagues that are bickering and things are falling apart on the development team. There's a lot going on. What do I need to do to reduce my overwhelm, okay? First you recognize you are overwhelmed, then you look at solving for that. For me, when I get overwhelmed, I feel a tightness in my chest. I find myself holding my breath or sighing a lot. I find myself irritable. I found myself sort of frantically picking things up, organizing my desk, trying to find some order in my life that's really superficial. And so when I feel that in my body and by observing my patterns, right, then that means Lori needs to go for a walk. That means Lori needs to get out of her head for a little bit and have a conversation with a friend, with a partner that helps me feel more connected to myself, okay? And it's important that we all have the ability to recognize what does overwhelm look like for you, and then what returns you to calm and some level of psychological safety, right? And when we think of safety, we don't necessarily think of like feeling safe by ourselves, but we're at a nervous system level, we're looking at how do I step out of that fight, flight, freeze response into a place of ease. And that can be drawing, that can be yoga, that can be running, that can be reading, that might be gaming, that might be cooking, right? You do you. It's important that every one of us, if we're going to be an effective leader, that we know how to reduce our overwhelm. And the other thing is, we're focusing on solutions. We also have to be able to focus on our priorities. That if we're overwhelmed, we feel like there's too much to do and not enough time to do it. So can you find a sounding board, or can you sit yourself down and say, these are everything that I have to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're just purging that all onto a piece of paper. Then, because it doesn't feel good to be Chicken Little, and you know it's not good for the people that you work with when you're in that place, how can you prioritize that full list of everything you have to do, right? So I'm gonna be like, well, I've written all these things down, but these are the most important. 1 and 2, and then I'm going to add deadlines, right? That immediately, just that, the ordering, the sequencing, and then assigning dates, immediately will bring you from a state of chaos towards more order, because that's what you've just done there. And our nervous system likes that, and that feels good. Okay, so you can practice doing that. I don't remember who to give the credit to, but somebody said if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any. And I've realized that a lot of us can upskill our ability to set priorities and to maintain them, right? Because sometimes we'll set them, but if they're changing every week, we're going to continue to experience a lot of churn and chaos. Hope you found this helpful. Remember, if you want to reduce the chicken littling, if you want to reduce any of the signs and symptoms, you name it to tame it.